Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to What's Up Wednesday, facilitating a discussion about facilities. My name is George Bergstrom, and I'm the Southwest Regional Coordinator from the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I'll be the host and question moderator today. Our presenters this morning are Nancy Disbrow, Director at the Andrews Dallas Township Public Library, Winnie Logan, Director at the Newcastle Henry County Public Library, and Scott Kinney, Director at the Evansville Vanderburgh Public Library. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few announcements. This webinar is provided as part of our What's Up Wednesday series. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. The Indiana State Library has many ways we try to stay connected to library staff across the state. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word. We also offer a blog, which provides information about the Indiana State Collection, interview spotlights on library staff from across the state, and information about upcoming events at the Indiana State Library. If you have a question today, just type it in the chat box on the upper left-hand side of the screen. I'll be watching, and I will get your questions to our panel as soon as there's a good opportunity. There will also be time near the end for questions. Today's session is worth one LEU. For those of you with us live, the LEU will be available for download at the end of the session. If you're watching in the future, details are available in the video description on YouTube for obtaining your LEU. If at any point during the webinar you are experiencing any sound issues, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box on the left-hand side of the screen. If there is a global sound issue, we will announce it in the chat pod. If you're unable to resolve the sound issues you are experiencing, we are recording the meeting and you can watch it offline after the meeting has ended. Again, if there's a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in the chat box. As an aside, on the screen here, we've got some of the upcoming events for February. So please take note of those, and they're all on the calendar for registration, etc. And without further ado, I will now turn our presentation over to Nancy Disbrow to start us off.
Hello, everybody. I think I can scroll through here, right, George?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, there we go. My name is Nancy Disbrow, and I'm from the Andrews Dallas Township Public Library, and you can see some of our information there on the screen. I'm pretty sure I am here as the representative of if I can do this, you can do this. You can see we are pretty small. We serve Dallas Township in Huntington County. Population 2,200, that's, approximate. I am the only full-time employee, and we are only open 32 hours a week. I do have one fabulous, incredible, amazing assistant, and we pretty standard about 14 hours a week, but it usually ends up being a little bit more based on whatever programming we're doing. And then as far as our facilities, we have a custodian who is more of an on-call position. He has a few regular duties, and he's really great about being a self-starter. He knows his main duties are landscaping in the spring, summer, fall, and snow maintenance or ice. As of yesterday, that was a lot of fun during the winter. And so he pretty much just watches the weather and takes care of things on his own. We get texts once in a while, whether what he's planning to do. And it works out really well for us, partly because of, I have employees who are dedicated and have integrity. And then we have a treasurer who's also a board member. You can see our little library there. The part to the left is our original building from 1926. And then to the right is our new expansion that was completed in 2014. Actually doubled our library. And what you can't see, the original building has a brick sort of porch area that I'm might talk about here in a minute. But that's our place right there. And that's really is a nice way to see the old and the new right next to each other. Here it is, my takeaways or give to yous about facilities. I certainly am not an expert. And so I think it's important to know what your people, know the knowledge areas of the people around you. So that's my surround yourself with people who know things. As a librarian, I'm sure you've heard you don't have to know all the answers, you just have to know where to find them. So I have been really fortunate in my board members have a great variety of skills, and they are enthusiastic and willing to help out. I have a board member who works with Zimmer here in Huntington, which does room additions, and he has been doing that for decades. And he is a great go-to for questions of all kinds. I also have a board member that she and her husband do they don't do house flipping because they rent them, but they buy homes and fix everything up and then rent those places out. And they have been very valuable in many different areas and questions. In fact, even when she wasn't on the board, when she would come into the library, I'd say, hey, what do you know about? And ask different questions of a variety of things. One of the things, the board member I was talking to you about before, about Zimmer, we had the brick porch area on our library had pulled away from the building decades ago, like settled. It had always been like this and had about a 3-inch gap from where the bricks of the building wall and the bricks of the porch. And it was kind of slanted down and cracked and pulled away. Didn't affect the integrity of the structure, but it looked pretty bad. But it had been like that as long as anybody could remember. And there was even some mason work that you could tell someone had tried to fix it at one point, and it had just settled again. At one point, we had gotten a donation, and that was one of the things the board members had always talked about wanting to fix. And I felt like this is going to be a huge fix, a lot of money for something that, I'm not sure is what we need to be doing. But the one board member happened to have been at a trade show for his business and was in a booth beside somebody, a concrete leveling company, and suggested we call them, and found out that instead of having to do the repair as a mason repair, where we had estimates for actually tearing apart the brickwork and rebuilding it, which was more in the 10,000 range, we were able to have these folks come in, they dig a hole, they do this clay injection and actually lift up the brickwork or concrete or whatever it is you need. And it was more like a $2,000 repair. And we had, which I would never have known there was something like that could be done. So as far, I always try to ask questions and find out what people know. And then I also say, trust your instincts, because there's always, you have those feelings in the back of your mind about what a fix might be or something that might be wrong. And countless times where I have not listened to those instincts and come back later and realize that there really was something wrong that I probably could have fixed earlier. One of the things I've started doing with our board, not rocket science, I make my board members walk around the building with me. We usually do this in the spring. I think of it as like spring cleaning. And at one board meeting, we do the interior of the building. And then at the next board meeting, we do the exterior. Before that meeting, I do that myself, and I do it with my assistant. And we kind of come up with a list of things that we're noticing that might need attention in the future, or dreams like, hey, we'd really like to have this happening. And then I make the board walk around with me and get more eyes on the situation. And then from those walkarounds, we create a project list. And then I think of that project list sort of as an addendum to our service plan. But it is more internal, I'll call it an internal document. It's not necessarily anything formal. I'm going to show you one of my favorite learning experiences. This is a picture in our basement, and this happened in 2015. It was about 16 months after our renovation was completed. So it was right after that 1-year mark on the warranty. And I will tell you, this was the second or third time. So the first time this happened, there was this puddle, random puddle on the concrete floor. I assumed somebody spilled something. I wiped it up. A few days later, it was back. and I will tell you on the instincts part, I'm going to spoil the story, but I did know that ice melt, which is what is in those bags, can do weird things. And I immediately checked the bags. They were fine. The salt was fine. Everything was fine in there. And I will also tell you that puddle of liquid was not touching the bags. Certainly not the first time that I wiped it up. It was a good 2 inches away from the bags of ice melt. So I thought that can't be what's happening. I assumed something was somehow seeping up from the floor. So I took this picture. I sent it to our contractor, our architect, and my husband. And I texted it to my husband. Contractor response was, can you pan out? Let me see what's around. I can't quite tell where that picture is taken. Architect responded, what's in those bags? Might be something happening there. My husband immediately texted back, you need to move those bags of salt. And so sure enough, I wiped up that spill again and moved the bags of salt, and it never happened again. Somehow the bags of salt were drawing the moisture and making these puddles. And I want to remind you, I checked those bags of salt. They were fine. The initial time that puddle was not even touching them. I had no idea that it could make a puddle of liquid. And I will say also it was kind of oily feeling, so it was really bizarre that it could do that. So it's always kind of a learning experience and finding out from people who know what's going on, and just find out. Don't be afraid to ask, and then keep adding to your knowledge. So I was a little disappointed. I was certain that this puddle was forming because the contractor had buried an alien under our basement, but sadly that was not the case. I was hoping we might make some money off of something. But trust those, ask and trust your instincts, because it was the bags of salt. I want to show you kind of what our lists look like. Like I said, this is totally informal. The wish list there was something I had done after our building project that I presented to our board because we did have a little bit of funding left. So I kind of threw some things on that list of what we might want to do. And I will say we were able to accomplish many of those things. And then the other list is, and the details are just, I'm just showing you, I just want to show you how informal it is on my end. I really just make a quick list and I hand it out to the board. Goals for the exterior of our library building. That's what came of our walk around. We just kind of start writing those things down, and then I sort of work toward those goals. And then I'll say in December, we look at that list again and say, what were we able to accomplish? What do we want to focus on again? Or what do we want to make priorities for the next few months? So it's not it's been very, very helpful since I started doing that. And it helps get those board members involved, helps with their knowledge. To know what they can contribute to. I'll say on our one list, when we looked at this in December, there were a couple things that we hadn't done, and they right away offered quick solutions to a couple of things to finish up a couple of items. So I guess mostly what I want to say is, 13 years ago, I didn't come into this job knowing anything about puddles on concrete or clay injection for concrete. We had a carpenter bee situation. I forgot to mention, of course, the listserv is an invaluable resource. One time I sent a picture of some holes in our wood overhang, and I had done a quick internet search and found the bees that I was finding and said, I think we have a carpenter bee problem. What do I do? And I got incredible resources back from other librarians who had dealt with the issue either personally or with their libraries. So, going into this job, I didn't know anything about any of those things. But you can kind of turn the attention of your inner nerdy librarian into looking at it as a research, and it can be kind of fun in the same way that when we tackle our tech issues or new services, it's sort of the same research and fun and finding out for the information. So I can kind of have that mindset on it, and I think that helps to tackle some of these issues in the same way that we do our other library operations and decisions. So thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to hearing from Winnie and Scott. I'm looking forward to learning in a few minutes here too. Thanks. That's all I have, George.
Go ahead and advance that, and we'll let Whit take over.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm here representing kind of the medium-sized library. We actually serve just over 40,000 people, and we'll see what happens when this new census comes out where we end up. But we have a 1916 Carnegie building that was renovated several times over the years. And then our most recent renovation and addition was done in 2003. And basically, we just about tripled the size of our library. So we currently have 77,000 square feet of space in our building. So it's a very large building. We have a single library building, and we do have a bookmobile that we go out around in the county to serve our community with as well. So I would just, again, echo what Nancy said, to surround yourself with people who know things, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes I've said this many times, this is not my area of expertise. And I don't really feel bad for saying that anymore, and continuing to learn as well. So wanted to talk a little bit about our staffing situation, where we have 31 staff members overall. We do have a full-time maintenance supervisor and 2 full-time maintenance assistants. So you can see our maintenance supervisor reports directly to me, and then he has 2 full-time staff members who report to him. And I will say that one of the most important things from my perspective is to have or one of the most important things, to me, or helpful things to me, is to have a maintenance supervisor that I can trust. That's really important. I know that he knows, lots of things, and he has been, I'm really blessed. He's been with this library for a long time. He lived with us through the construction, and so he's got a lot of that institutional memory of how things used to be, and then the construction piece of it and how things are now. So he's been invaluable to me. And so he directs and oversees the work of the assistants, which their primary responsibility is to, do cleaning and things like that. But he also assists with cleaning as needed. He's responsible for scheduling and oversight of our outside contractors and vendors for work that we need to do, as well as just general maintenance and repair responsibilities. So, if a light bulb burns out or whatever, he's the one that takes care of making sure that's repaired, or any, handyman type of repairs. They also do. We have, of course, the bookmobile and a couple other vehicles, vans and things for, doing outreach with. And so he's responsible for making sure that those are clean and serviced. He usually doesn't service it himself, just takes it to the dealership or, wherever to get oil changes and things like that. Although he does occasionally do some mechanical repairs with the bookmobile and things like that, if it's something that he is able to do. As I mentioned, we have 2 maintenance assistants who their main responsibilities are cleaning, and this is a really large building, and so that's been a big deal, and particularly now for the last year in this pandemic, they're spending a lot of time cleaning and sanitizing, disinfecting, and so that's really stretched that department to be able to meet those needs. But they do a great job. They do assist their supervisor with larger projects as needed. They help us, not anymore because we're not doing our meeting rooms, but they normally would help with meeting room setup for our programs, as well as, if the public is using our meeting rooms and things like that. So that's where their job lies. They also, do all of the trash pickup and recycling and all of those just kind of day-to-day responsibilities. A lot of our work is handled with outside vendors. So, of course, we have an HVAC contract where, we have an annual maintenance. They come in the spring and again, then in the fall and winter and get the system ready to go for the next season and take care of any repairs and things like that. We have a company that does our landscaping. And so they take care of mowing the grass. We don't have a lot of grassy areas, but they do all of our flowers and grass. And we have a sprinkler system for the lawn and things like that. So they take care of all of that and then make sure everything is winterized in the winter. Snow removal, I do put that out for bid every year generally. And so we have 2 or 3 contractors who, bid on that. And we've stayed with the same one for the last few years, but occasionally we'll switch to somebody else. And so they take care of plowing the lot and salting, of course. And then in years past, we've had our maintenance supervisor and our assistants be the ones who would shovel the walks and the stairs and things like that. And that really had become very time consuming. And if we got any decent snow at all or, ice, they would spend lots of their day doing that. And so it really took away from their responsibilities inside the building. So we decided that it really was in our best interest to let our whoever was plowing the lot to actually do our sidewalks and things as well. So that saved our staff time. And, the companies are set up, they do it they do it pretty quickly and get it taken care of. Now our staff, they will go back out, of course, if we have ice and things and salt the walks and make sure they're clear, but it's not, one of their primary responsibilities, to clear the entire thing. Then we have fire intrusion and door access control contractors. So all of our fire alarms and the burglar alarms and those things, we do have outside vendor that manages those for us, as well as pest control. So just kind of the general making sure that we're not buggy here in the building. They come through quarterly and either spray or put down little traps as we need to. It's not a big issue, but occasionally it can be. So it's always good to have somebody on call. And then as needed, we might have an electrical situation that's going on that we need some work, or plumbing. We have contractors that we're comfortable working with and that we've worked with in the past that our maintenance supervisor can call on and get them in to do any repairs that may need to be done. And kind of like Nancy had mentioned, I try to, on a regular basis, maybe quarterly or at the very least semi-annually, walk through the building with an eye to looking around to see, okay, what needs repaired, or are there ceiling tiles that are, kind of damaged and need repaired and things like that. So I just walk through and can make a list. And most of the time, my maintenance supervisor, he's already on it and knows, what needs to be done and working on a plan to get things taken care of. But it's always good to have another set of eyes, because sometimes I find that we're so used to, coming in the building and we don't even notice some things anymore. So it's always good to have another set of eyes on things, or, some other staff or board members who can look through and see things with fresh eyes. So I think that's always a good thing to do as well. And so that's just kind of my quick overview as to how we maintain our facilities here. And I'll be interested to, and of course, happy to answer any questions when we get to that part of our presentation. So thanks for your time today.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Kinney, and I'm the CEO Library Director of the Evansville-Vanderburgh Public Library. Been here for about a year, just over a year. Wish we were doing this in person so I could meet some of you. It's been different starting a new position in the midst of COVID and not being able to travel and do these workshops and meetings in person. I was previously at the Mobile Public Library in Mobile, Alabama. That's the largest public library in the state of Alabama. We were 11 branch system when I was there, and we opened a 12th branch right when we left, as well as having bookmobile services, and served a population of 411,000. But we also served, had cooperative agreements with all the counties surrounding us, including folks in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Prior to that, I was a director in Wyoming at the Sweetwater County Library System. And what's interesting about that system, that is the largest county library system in the country in terms of land area. Our county was 10,500 square miles, and that was an 8-branch system. So that had unique challenges, especially when you're dealing with Wyoming weather. But here in Evansville, we're an 8-branch system, as most of you know. We have a very large central library. It's, I believe, 194,000 square feet. The interesting thing about that is we have a parking garage, and the portion of the parking garage has to be finished with a ceiling in the state of Indiana. So that counts as square footage when it comes to taxes and square footage and all of that. So really what we're looking like is about 128,000 square feet for the public areas when you take out that portion of the parking garage that kind of makes it sound a lot larger. So with that, we'll get started. Obviously, why continued maintenance and knowledge of your facilities are important. First impressions are important. How your facilities look and are maintained sets the tone for your organization. It can help you reduce cost. If you're keeping up with your maintenance, it can reduce your energy bills and things like that. And it also increases safety, not only for your staff, but also for the public, which hopefully will mean you don't have any lawsuits because you had concrete that was raised and somebody tripped, or a faulty door that closes over someone's foot. These are all real things that had happened to me over my career. And unfortunately, those things do happen. So I do encourage you to have a safety committee to review all accidents and do regular checks, because some things are just out of your control. So what to do first as a new director? Well, when I first came here to Evansville and Mobile and Sweetwater County prior to that, I always took the time to visit the facilities. Now, this is all obviously twofold. You want to meet your new staff, you want to see your facilities, but you want to see what the strengths and weaknesses of your facilities, what kind of shape are they in? And then you can make a mental plan, or actually a written plan, taking notes of what needs to be done at these facilities. Are there lights out? Are they clean? Those types of things. So when you visit your facilities, you want to obviously take a tour with your facilities manager. I did that with our facilities manager here, Stan Egley. He's been here for a number of years and has great experience. And you want to learn about the type of systems you have. Are you a chilled water system? Are you a gas system? The number of pumps and et cetera that you have. Where are the electrical boxes? Is it a manual system? Is it an automated system with computer controls? And this can be different from building to building, because you've heard from Nancy, who has a single small library, and Winnie, who has a large single library. And then we have a large facility here, but also 8 branches. So you can see how it scales up in terms of what you have to handle. Basically, the things that they're talking about, we're multiplying. So what you have to know as a director, you can't do all this by yourself. You have to rely on your facility staff, your branch managers, and your library staff. Here at Evansville, we have our own custodial staff. We also have our own facilities maintenance staff, and then we have a lot of these services contracted out, like HVAC, fire protection and checking, and a lot of our plumbing and electrical that we can't do in-house. But again, on these first tours, learn where your water shutoffs are located, where your breaker boxes are located, know where your building blueprints are. And it's really important to know which set of blueprints are the as-built and not the design blueprints. And know where your materials safety data sheets are, your MSDS sheets are, and where they are located, and are they located in the proper place. For those of you that don't know what MSDS sheets are, any cleaning chemicals that you use in your facility should have the blue MSDS sheets, and they should be stored where those chemicals are stored. So if they're in your janitor's closets, you should have a set of them there. And I always made sure I had a master set in not only our facilities maintenance office with the assistant manager and the manager, but also in the HR office and the director's office, just in case there's an emergency and you have to look and see for information on poisoning or something like that. And the other thing I would mention is always meet with your vendors regularly and attend those meetings with your facilities manager. Make sure that you know what's going on with your facilities. What are your facility strengths and weaknesses? When was your facility built and last renovated? Are your furnishings clean, in good repair, and safe? Have your mechanical systems been updated, and how long ago? And did you update your building plans to reflect the new changes in your mechanical systems or any wiring that you have done? That's very important. A lot of times when we do renovations and additions, or we've rerun plumbing or added something, we don't tend to put those design drawings with our plans. So when something comes up, it's hard for someone, especially who's new like me coming in, if you can't see those with your plans, you don't know what was happening. You have to rely on the historical knowledge of your building. So be kind to someone who may be taking your place in the future, and try and keep those documents with your original plans. Do you have your own library facilities and on-site staff? It sounds like most of us have a combination of both. And I've, throughout my career, had both. I've had my own facility staff and custodial staff, and I've had it where it's been all contracted. In Mobile, Alabama, my last stop, actually our library facilities were city-owned buildings. We were a municipal library, and we didn't own our buildings, so all the work that was done from a mechanical standpoint were done by city employees. So we called the city to come and fix things, so it's a little bit different. So sometimes when things were broken, you may have to wait months or years to get it done. It just depends on what your favor was with the current administration. Are there contract employees or a combination of both? Does your building have a good flow and a welcoming appearance? Again, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So on the exterior, when you're coming into your building, is it welcoming? Are the library grounds well maintained? Do you have trash cans that are located conveniently? Do they get emptied frequently? Are there animal nests, insect nests that may be harmful? Winnie talked about having carpenter bees, and I live with carpenter bees in the South, and they are no fun. So steel wool and WD-40 can become your friend in taking care of those if you can catch them early. On the interior, again, you want your facility to be welcoming. Are your furnishings clean and good repair? Again, with trash cans, you'd be surprised how many complaints you'll get and how clean your facility will be if you have trash cans that are located all over the place and if you keep them empty. Are the floors clean and good repair? Again, this comes back to safety and appearance. You want to make sure that there's no trip hazards and things like that. And again, if your library is welcoming, people will think the world to you. And this, not the first to say this, I think both Winnie and Nancy touched on building rounds. Building rounds are very important in maintaining a safe and inviting library facility. I put an emphasis on building rounds with our library staff every place I've been, and trying to do it here in Evansville as well. My funny story about that was the other day, I walk my facilities twice a day, mainly for exercise. So I don't sit in the office all day and just get some fresh air. But I was walking by one of the mechanical rooms and I heard water. So I pulled out my master key, I opened the door and I look in there, and then I heard voices, and they were doing a tour. Actually, one of my facilities maintenance staff was touring one of my executive staff on the HVAC system and showing them the type of filters and HEPA filters and stuff we had in our HVAC system. And they're also tracing where the hot water is, because we didn't have hot water in the bathrooms on the third floor. So we were testing that to make sure the hot water was working. So because I heard water and they were testing it in the mop basin, I could hear it from the hall. And the reason I say that is when I was in Mobile, we had a $60,000 water bill one time. And that was because we lost an irrigation pipe, and we caught it soon enough that it didn't cost us a whole lot of money. We actually got all that money refunded to us because we worked with the water department in the city and said, hey, this wasn't our fault. It was, something faulty at the irrigation main. So it's very important to do these rounds. And again, it can help you reduce costs and increase safety. A well-maintained library facility can reduce your energy bills. If you have your HVAC system checked regularly and your filter changes, it's obviously going to operate more efficiently and cost less to run. Another thing I was pointing out with them when we were in there, when we were checking filters, I noticed we have a company that changes our filters. Well, they were not initialing and putting dates of when they changed our filters. So I talked to our facilities guys and told them we need to have them do that. We need to make sure they're changing these regularly because we're paying them for it. Because a lot of times if you have a really good HVAC system, it's really hard to tell, especially when you're looking at your internal filters, your secondary filters, how dirty they actually are, because the amount of particulates coming through them is so small. So you really want to monitor those systems and make sure that those practices are in place and that you have a log for when peoples are coming in to do maintenance on your system. And it also helps you with insurance too. If they see you're maintaining your HVAC systems and you have logs and things in place that you're actually checking up on it, sometimes you get a break on your property insurance as well. We had a monitoring system installed on our energy usage down in Mobile, and we have it here in Evansville as well. So we can literally monitor live how much electricity we're using. And we could do the same thing down in Mobile. We also had a lightning arrest system that was built into that too. So we had whole building surge. That was a big thing to have in the South with the amount of thunderstorms and tornadic activity that we had down there, as well as hurricanes. And again, the important thing, not only check the inside for leaks, and when you're doing your building rounds, looking up, looking in corners, looking at the ceiling tiles, like when you said, listening for hums in your light fixtures. Do you have a ballast going out? Those types of things. But look outside and watch your irrigation system for leaks, because water bills can get really expensive. But if you can catch that leak early and be able to see where that leak is, it may save you some money on that water bill. And again, down here, actually up here in Indiana, we have a lot of solar. So make sure your solar panels are clear from leaves and debris, and that they're clean, because they'll operate more efficiently and hopefully get some more power back to the grid. We have solar panels here on our central library in Evansville, and we actually save considerable money on our utilities because of that. And we're currently in the process of switching all of our fixtures out to LED, so it's even helping us out even more. And again, after you've toured and inspected your facilities, make a plan, and if necessary, repairs, update any procedures, etc. Work with your staff to determine the immediate needs of your building. And this is really important because it can be a team building thing as well. You can get their input for new furniture placement. Does the room need to be rearranged? Carpet, does it need to be carpet? Do you need to go to luxury vinyl tile? Is that more conducive to a library environment? Do we need to add more technology, which means we're going to have to add power and telephony cable, your Cat6 cable, and how does that affect the room design? And again, this could be a great team building exercise for a new director. And we did a lot of this when I first came here this last year. We did, with COVID, we took that opportunity and we did a lot of facilities upgrades and moved a lot of stuff around within our facilities, not only to handle and add our social distancing, but just to reuse our spaces and reinvent how we're doing it. We had one library go to a single desk instead of a multi-desk library in one of our medium-sized branches, and it's working out really well for them. Determine if and when you need to hire outside consultants to develop a facilities or master plan. And we're currently doing that right now. We just let in RFP to hire a library facilities planner. We know we have some branches here in Evansville that are undersized. We also want to have a planner look at the space use of our current facilities and look at the locations of our current facilities and see if we need to add another branch. And when we go to expand, is it an expander? Or is it better to just build a new branch in that same area here in Evansville? So we're getting ready to start that process and waiting for RFPs to come in on February 1st. And do we have any questions?
Right. Well, while I let everyone start typing questions if they've got them, I did actually have one question. Nancy, as you were speaking, you mentioned what is a current board member, but who at the time wasn't a board member, who you knew had renovation expertise. How do you sort of learn that about your patrons, and how do you approach them to sort of start forming that relationship?
I think some of that is the beauty of a small library. uh, we just, we do just form relationships with our patrons just because when they come in and they're looking at books and we know what they're doing. Now, in that case, she had been a board member. I don't think they were doing the same things with remodeling at the time when she was a board member, but she had been a board member early on in my time here at the library, but had to go off the board because of her job, but continued to be a patron of the library. So I sort of had a relationship with her. So it was just, in talking and, finding out what people are doing, knew that she had resigned from her job to do full-time work with her husband on remodeling homes. So it just kind of had happened that way. And and her husband, I've had conversations with him. So that the one particular one I'm thinking of was they had come in and I had asked about our new toilets after the expansion. I was like, surely these toilets have to operate differently than this. And he went down and took a look at it and he's like, nope, that's really the way it works. There isn't anything you can do. And specifically that's because they just don't have enough water in the bowl of the toilet is my thing. I think it's a bad design and it doesn't always flush very well, which is a fun thing. So, if you ever want to know, don't get these toilets. But another was with flooring and some tiling questions, just because they were talking about being in Huntington and going to the Habitat Restore and picking up stuff. And so I knew they knew how to do tiling, and we were talking about a space down in our basement area, and just kind of comes up. So I don't know that I have advice on how to form that relationship. I think it's just part of what we do here in getting to know our patrons. Yeah.
Sure. And so here's a question, any of you, are there any business or library specific facilities books that you've found to have helpful guidance or checklists for maintenance? Any of you have ideas and then I guess an addendum to that, or are there trade shows you keep an eye on or learn more about modern fixtures, greener maintenance, tech, etc.?
There are trade shows where you can learn about modern fixtures and et cetera, but generally when you're doing that and you're going into a facilities remodel or something like that, you'll be working with an architect and they're going to show you samples of all that too. But generally what you'll see in the residential market, they're going to have in the commercial market as well. And they'll just be sturdier. But definitely work with your architect when you're looking for those new and greatest things. I'm sure most of you are putting in water bottle filling water fountains now. And, that's just one of the things that COVID has forced us to do. We just put those in all of our buildings and, the touchless faucets and all of that. We generally have already had those. That's a big thing that people are coming into the things we're looking at. And I know some of the people in the Southwest were talking about the automatic touchless door openers for interior doors and things like that due to COVID and just basic sanitation, whether it be flu or COVID-19. So yeah, the answer is, yeah, there are trade shows. I'm sure we can find you a list. Just contact me after this is over and I can probe the memory banks and remember where they're at. I know it's in Vegas once a year is the big trade show for it.
Sure. I'm just going to switch us to the LEU screen, mainly because it has contact info for all three of our presenters. But if you have more questions, keep them coming. Okay, Aaron asks, my library is looking to hire a maintenance supervisor. I'd love to look at job descriptions that might inform how to put together our own job description. Would anyone be willing to share?
Aaron, what size is your library?
Okay, Aaron is typing.
I didn't think to mention during this that we hire a cleaning crew. Like Winnie had mentioned the cleaning of the library, we actually do a once a month is all we do. A cleaning crew. We're that small that once a month does enough. And then my assistant and I just occasionally refill the toilet paper and that sort of thing. So I do have job descriptions, but ours are obviously going to be for so I have a custodian, like we call it the custodian maintenance, and then we have custodian cleaning, and we sort of real small things. I'm sure all of us would be willing to share those.
Yeah, Erin says they're small. She doesn't know the exact square footage, but under 10,000 on the community. And I'll read Robert's question here. Has anyone else, it moved on me just a second. There we go. Has anyone else taken advantage of the free life cycle study offered from Moeller Architects out of Lafayette? That might have been a limited time thing around the 2020 ILF. So if anyone has experience with that, you can drop that in the chat for him. We are currently a one building with a half FTE facilities person. We will soon be 2 buildings. Is there any advice on how to scale up on staff?
I'm hoping Scott or Winnie can help with that. We haven't done much scaling up around here.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that question.
Oh, sure. Kimberly's asking that they currently have 1 building and a half-time person, but will soon have 2 buildings. So is there advice on how to scale up on staffing?
The best advice I can give you on staffing, you're going to at least double your staff because you have multiple facilities, but really set expectations out of what you want done to your facilities. How often you want them clean, what their cleaning priorities, are they doing grounds maintenance? Are you contracting that out? Are you contracting out your custodial? Is your maintenance person just going to be more of a handyman and do minor repairs? And if that's the case, are your buildings newer and won't need a lot of that? Are they still under warranty? So that's really not a problem. So you have to consider all those things. But look at your position descriptions when you're creating your position descriptions for those folks and what their expectations are. And I would just talk to your peer libraries that are of your size and find out what their FTE is for their staffing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. The library community is great at sharing this type of information. So you can determine, for the expectations you have with your staff and the way you're running it, of how many FTE you'll need to accomplish those goals.
Are there any other questions? All right, Looks like we're kind of slowing down on the questions. So I'm going to have Lisa go ahead and stop the recording.